So without further ado, I have Shannon Young here. And to give you a little bit of background, I have had the pleasure of knowing Shannon for about 10 years. And I have seen Shannon go from your regular brand new LO to a 50+ million dollar producer. And that is a feat all unto itself. In 2020, Shannon did over 50 million in production on his own. Not a big staff surrounding him, not a whole bunch of anything except a lot of hours and a lot of hard work. And that's about 200 plus deals he closed last year. So who better to start with? Shannon Young. Thank you, Shannon, for being with us here today.
Thanks, Eric.
So question for you. You walk into the office on Monday morning and kind of give everybody an idea of what your mindset is as soon as you walk in, what time you walk in, how you plan your day from day one.
Gotcha. Well, my day's set up a lot differently than a lot of other people's are because I'm more of a morning person than I am a night person. So I have made, the choice to balance my work life to be home at night. So I get into the office somewhere around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I do that because it's nice and quiet. The phones aren't ringing. It's peaceful in the morning. And I use not only Monday morning, but I use every morning to set the tone for my day. I come in, I write a list of everything I need to do that morning. And the first thing I do each and every morning is I review all of my documents for pre-approvals and refis I need to do that day. And I put together all of my contracts, applications, and everything and have them ready to go. This way, once everybody wakes up, 9 o'clock, 9:30, rolls around, the phones start ringing. My stuff's ready to go, and I can focus that day on selling. I can focus on that day doing what I feel I do best and really selling, prospecting, calling realtors, being available for my referral partners and my customers throughout the entire day.
All right, so now that's a great takeaway right there because some of us are early morning risers like Shannon, and then we have some people that really prefer to work into the evening, right? But the thing that they have in common, guys, is that they're making themselves available for the real estate agents and clients in the middle of the day when they're needed, right? And they're utilizing the downtime after or before work hours in order to get really the nuts and bolts done. So I think that's a big takeaway because LOs typically get caught in the minutia. They try and start at 8:30, 9 o'clock. They go to 6 o'clock or so, but they're on and off the phone, Shannon, right? So I can tell you, I sit next to Shannon. My office is right next to his. So once 9 o'clock hits, I could hear Shannon selling. And he's paying attention to MBS Highway because I could hear him quoting things from Barry Habib and the morning updates, right? So think of those types of things. Be prepared for your real estate agents and your clients so you don't go in unprepared. So, now that we know how you structure your day, do you spend a lot more time on the phone, Shannon, or do you prefer doing a lot more email? I mean, what's your preferred method of communication? Because I know a lot of LOs will fall back to email.
Right. I like to use email as a recap of a phone conversation because let's face it, there's both of them have great purposes. However, for me, I like to be able to invite my customer to have a dialogue, to give them a platform to ask questions. Because as you're having conversations, you may end up emailing somebody, something which might pose them to have another question, which might pose you to have another answer, which might pose another question, and then all of a sudden you're back and forth through 10 or 15 emails on a topic. I like to have a conversation. I like to set up a call with a borrower, say, hey, what time is good and convenient for you? Let's have a call around this. Let's set up a dialogue. Let's go through it. And then what I'll do is I'll email the borrower a recap of our conversation so that they have it. This way, nothing gets lost in translation. Nothing gets confused. And it gives them the platform to have all of their questions answered in one setting versus both of you having a very time-consuming conversation with email back and forth, 15 or 16 different times.
Excellent, excellent. And I can say the two things I hear as I hear Shannon speaking with his clients. First, Shannon controls the conversation, right? He's filled with knowledge. He understands the point of the conversation. He controls that and guides his people that direction, whether it's a real estate agent or a client. And two, whenever I hear the clients hanging up with Shannon, never ever do I hear anything other than thank you so much, Shannon. We appreciate you. That is a common theme that I always hear. So, Shannon, thanks for sharing that with us. I mentioned MBS Highway, right? And I mentioned that I know you use some of that in your business. Would you suggest it for all the loan officers to use? And what would you use most if you could point that out to anybody else?
Well, first off, I'll take these questions a little out of order. I would recommend MBS Highway. If you're not using it, you're at a complete disadvantage, straight up. Like I'm not even gonna lie with it. I use it. I look at every morning recap, every daily update to see whether or not I need to lock or float that day. I look at, I use all of the calculators, especially, for refinances. I use blended rate. If somebody says, listen, I want to take out a home equity loan, I use the blended rate calculator. I use the amortization calculator. Are you looking at a 15 versus 30? Well, what if I make an extra payment? The buy versus rent calculator, paying points. I'm using each and every one of these sales tools because borrowers want to be informed. As a loan officer, we have got to allow the borrower to have a platform to one where they feel free to ask questions. And number two, we need to be as transparent as possible and give them as much information as we possibly can so that they can make an informed decision. The more conversations we have up front, the less conversations we're having 3 days prior to closing. I can tell you one of the things I always do is I'll send them graphs, I'll send them calculators, I will break it all down, saying, look, this is what you have, this is where we are. You tell me based on this decision. You tell me what you're thinking, and I'll help you come up with a solution that's right for you. I'm not overbearing in my recommendations. We want to help the borrower find a pathway to their own success. That's what we're here for.
Right. And I can tell you again, hearing you on the phone, you come across as an authority of a lot of product knowledge. When you're speaking about interest rates, you're not worried about speaking the rates because you've already educated them based on what you know from MBS Highway, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're already taking away some objection because we know people are always looking online. They think what they see on CNN's website on interest rates dropping, it's just how it is, or whatever they're looking. So that kind of pushes me to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
As you're educating them with all the tools you have from MBS Highways and your basic knowledge of doing this for so many years, how do you truly approach rates and pricing with your clients? Is it pricing based on what you think they're looking for, pricing on what you could sell, or how do you approach this in general?
I always have a candid and transparent conversation about pricing and rates. I'm not one of those people who I don't like to dilly-dally. I will hit a borrower between the eyes with pricing, and I will back it up with statistics. You know, Basically, we know right now we are in an increasing rate environment. That is, make no mistake about it, that's where we are. Unfortunately, our competitors are offering or advertising, I should say, lower rates, but almost all of those are coming with points. If we're looking at assumptions, we're seeing, okay, it's at this points, that points, this points. And the first question I'll ask a borrower is, well, do you want to pay points or do you not want to pay points? Most borrowers have absolutely zero idea what that question means. And once I ask that question, it kind of diffuses them and it gets them thinking. And a lot of times I can sell a higher interest rate without points because of the fact that a borrower may not be in that property long enough to recoup their money. This is where your MBS Highway sales tools come into play. Calculate what their break-even point. Have the conversation with them. Say, listen, are you going to be in this property for the next 7, 8 years or however long it's going to take you to recoup that money? If you're not, it's not worth it to you to pay these points. If you do want to pay the points, great. Let's have that conversation. So rates have always been something I have never shied away from, because you're never going to get around that conversation. Because in most cases, when a customer asks you, well, what's my rate? Their biggest concern is their payment. So if we can show them different tools and ways to keep that payment low, in a lot of cases, we can diffuse that rate conversation, or at least soften that rate conversation, so that it's not about, well, what's your rate? Now, granted, I'll be the first person to admit I've lost a deal or two. Sometimes you have online lenders out there that, listen, sometimes you got to tip your cap and say, hey, great, you got the deal of the century. Fantastic. However, most buyers, and I actually had a conversation with a realtor on this yesterday. Most buyers want to be informed. They want that person that's going to walk through the fire with them. The more conversations and the more you can educate them up front, the more wins you're going to have. You know, it's like a pitcher, and I equate this to like a pitcher who wins the Cy Young Award. He may win 20 games. He might lose 8, but he'll win 20. You're going to win more. We're going to win way more than you lose by being that trusted advisor.
Yeah, and that's awesome advice. And you're the trusted advisor, even right up to the day of closing. I hear you coordinating literally, hey, the CD's going out today. Hey, this is what you can expect. Hey, when do you want to close? So I think that is a true testament of how you control it from the beginning to the rate, to the process, to the closing. And that's basically what top producers do, guys. So I know you're busy. You got your 17 applications due today. One last question for you, big guy. If you had to pick one bit of advice, one thing of advice to give everybody out there on what they could do to go ahead and grow their business. Now, not everybody can emulate every single thing that Shannon Young does, but if you can give them one thing, at least to start the process, what's your thought on that?
It's funny, Eric. I've actually been thinking about this question more so than anything, and I'll actually give 3.
Okay.
You know, the 3 things I would do is this. One is you've got to follow up. You've got to absolutely follow up with your borrowers. You want to keep them engaged. Okay. The more you can keep a borrower engaged and the more you can follow up, the more you are going to win that borrower over. And not only do you want to follow up with the borrower, but you want to keep the realtor informed. You have got to follow up even when it's bad news. Don't shy away from it. Own it. Own every piece of it.
Yeah.
In this process, you are the quarterback of the entire transaction. Everything runs through you as an originator. So you got to know kind of what's going on the field. You have to know your playbook better than everybody else, and you have to kind of command everybody as to where to go. Second thing I would do is, number 2, know your guidelines and your resources. I can't tell you how many times I'm looking things up. I've been in the industry now for 20 years, but there's still, this is an ever-changing environment. There's stuff that I don't know. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always looking to be a student of the game, and I am constantly in my guidelines, because, again, if we're going to take on this trusted advisor role, we need to make sure and understand that we know what we're doing. We have to know our craft, right? If we went to a doctor's office and the doctor has, medical advice for dummies sitting in the room, we're probably not going to trust that doctor with our healthcare. Same thing with us. It's no different. So to know your craft. Number 3, and this is probably one of the most important things, I always give I always give a borrower and a realtor a platform to ask questions. This is a big, scary, ugly process, but it doesn't have to be. And I tell buyers that, listen, you are going to have a million questions as we go throughout this transaction. I want you to ask them all. I want you to be able to come to me, and so that we can break this process down into digestible bites so that it doesn't feel overwhelming. Most borrowers that, in my experience, that I have found, that if they don't understand something or something is too complicated or they feel like they can't get through something, they will walk away from it. They will go to the path of least resistance. That is where we as an originator, we need to make it easy for them. It's not about us. It's about them. And we have to make it about them and keep it made about them so that they will come back to us. And I guarantee you're going to win so much more than you lose if you do that. I tell the buyer, look, you're going to have a lot of questions. Let's get it all on the table. The more you can invite them to do that and the more questions they ask, the more engaged they will be, the more and the more you're going to win that customer over. And I've always believed, and I'll end with this, I've always believed that service leads to sales. I do not really go out and knock on doors. I don't go out and I don't cold call realtors. I don't do any of that. Every single person that I get, that every lead I get, every referral I get is now word of mouth. And it's because I did the job that I did a good job on the previous customer. Now they refer their friends and family. Now the realtor refers more business. Title company refers business. It's going to come back to you eventually. You've got to do the best job you can and give it your 150% while you're here and while you're working every day. Give everything your best, because if you don't, people will see you having a bad day. They'll feel it. They'll feel your energy. And if they feel that energy, they're not going to want to work with you, and people will work with whom they know, like, and trust.
Very true. So just to recap on that, guys, 3 things: follow up, follow up, follow up, right? Make sure you do that. Knowledge is power. Make sure that when they go into your doctor office, that you as a physician know everything about your mortgages, right? You want to make sure that you come across that way as the professional. Don't be wishy-washy. If you don't know the answer, tell them you're going to figure it out and call them right back. And lastly, make sure that you give them a platform to ask questions, because as Shannon said, sometimes this process could be a little scary, but it's scary when you just don't understand the process. So you can disarm your clients right there and have a very good, smooth conversation to where you don't have to ever get into that back and forth where people are panicking. Also, use the tools we have. MBS Highway is worth its weight in gold. If you do not have access to MBS Highway, contact me directly. I'll make sure that you get set up. Shannon, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate the fact that you took some time with us to help everybody out. Much appreciated. And guys, we'll be doing these videos from time to time to continue to give everybody some great information to help grow your business. Thanks again, Shannon.
Appreciate the time, Eric. Thank you.
All right, take care.